It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interviews.
There's going to be much higher expectations, sense of awareness of what we bring to the table.
Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Throws, ends it, yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome on in. It's another edition of the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, the 106.9 The Fan mobile app. Also streaming on 1069thefan.com. A lot of different ways to listen, to follow along, and to participate as well. I invite you to text into the program if you'd like. Full Court Press text line is 435-339-0321. And the Full Court Press phone line, you can always call into the show. That happens from time to time. 435-752-1069 if you want to call in. Couple different things going on looking towards the weekend. Fridays are always kind of fun here on the Full Court Press because weekends tend to be pretty busy in sports. So it's Friday tends to be a what's coming up show for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, that's.
Oops, I always forget. We got to.
Come on, Eric.
I'm still not in the right habit here.
I need my mic. There we go.
Yes.
Yeah, and we'll see. Now I've lost my train of thought, but yeah, it's been a preview. Of course, we usually had our preview Thursday. Is kind of what that was, but that was a lot more score predictions, whatnot. But yeah, Friday. Always looking forward to the weekend. It's been a fantastic week for watching sports. I've watched more sports probably in 1 week, just live games, than I guess more specifically not Utah State related. Because I guess I watch a lot of live games during Utah State seasons, like 2 or 3 basketball games. But like the number of NBA hockey games I've watched over the last couple of weeks, it's been fantastic. It's just a great time to be a sports fan because you've got 2 really good playoffs. You know, sports having their playoffs right now with hockey, with the NBA. And heck, if you're an NFL fan, obviously this weekend is like what you've been preparing for ever since the middle of February.
Yeah, and Major League Baseball, they're now a full month into their season, so you're really starting to get a better idea of who these teams really are at this point.
So outside of like that mid-October, I forget the exact span, where you have every major sport playing, from Major League Soccer to baseball to the NFL, college football, not quite into college basketball yet, but you're close, but hockey, like every single major sport in America, with maybe if you want to consider college basketball a major sport, like every sport that has like a huge following there's like a couple of weeks where every single one of them is going, and it's spectacular. So outside of maybe that week, like this stretch of the year might be even, might be as good, if not better in some people's minds, because like with then it's like a lot of seasons are just getting going. Like the only sports that are winding down is Major League Baseball and MLS. A lot of people don't care about MLS. A lot of times people don't lump that in with all the sports that are going on. But, you got Major League Baseball, World Series, October, It's a magical time.
Yeah.
But everyone else is just getting going. Here it's NBA, this is where things are getting decided. This is where people are, actually tuning in and actually caring about what happens. I mean, I think it was the Milwaukee Bucks Twitter account said it best. Nobody cares what happens during the regular season. It's about the playoffs. That's what's mattering right now. And so I'm having a blast watching these teams. I feel like every hockey game I've watched has come down to the wire. Basketball games, it's been a little more hit and miss, but I've managed to see some fantastic endings to NBA games. Managed to miss the Jamal Murray buzzer beater, but I saw the New York Knicks 76ers ending, which sort of makes up for that.
Yeah, equally fascinating.
They're both pretty crazy. But yeah, a lot of fun things. And heck, there's a game going on right now. Pacers are taking it to the Bucks in the late in the first quarter. Plenty of time left in that one, but it's a fun time to be a sports fan.
Yeah, there is a lot that's going on, and it's fun to be here with you and be a part of it and talk about what's happening. And we also continue to look at things that the other thing that's ongoing is the transfer portal. And as it goes round and round, it just keeps spinning. And no real players of note from Utah State, but there are some players that are connected to the Mountain West.
Well, the Aggies got a commitment yesterday.
Well, yes, they did, but I meant today.
Yeah,
It
today,
seems like it's
no news.
every day is a different story. It
No
seems like
news
it is.
today. By the way, 7241 saying downplaying MLS will not be tolerated. Never mind that the biggest athlete in the U.S. plays in MLS.
It's
Yes.
true.
Is Lionel Messi still that big?
Internationally,
I know internationally he's really big.
but if you were to put him on the same if you were to rank highest profile professional athletes in America right now,
Are we talking about among Americans?
among Americans,
Among Americans, oh yeah, Lionel Messi's like not even top 10.
I don't think he'd be top 10.
No. The other problem is I feel like him coming to America means that the international world isn't paying attention to him as much, because the international world doesn't pay attention to the MLS. So obviously Messi is the biggest name of all and the most recognizable name among all athletes in America, especially internationally. Nobody cares he's playing for Miami.
Yeah, I mean, they did somewhat of a world tour. They went and did some friendlies, a couple different spots around the world.
That's just the Messi
and
tour.
it was a big deal
Yeah.
for those. And granted, if you're in Miami, it is a big deal.
Yeah. Well, and if you're in the MLS, it's kind of a big deal because the MLS media won't shut up about Messi. That's why I have to limit the amount of MLS stuff that I watch, that I pay attention to, because it's just Lionel Messi. What has he done this week? It's kind of like when LeBron went to the Miami Heat, and ESPN had a tab on their website specifically set aside for LeBron James and Miami Heat coverage, or Tiger Woods. They have a Tiger Woods tracker or whatnot. It's that kind of level of pure obsession. Heck, similar to Caitlin Clark, you kind of get the idea.
Right.
It's that kind of obsession that, I have nothing against any particular athletes. I have nothing against Caitlin Clark or LeBron or, go down the list. But it gets a little annoying when that's all you talk about because, as I mentioned, talking about all these sports, there's so much going on.
Right. You're ignoring some really interesting storylines if you only focus on one or two people.
Yeah, and if nothing else, interesting sports.
Yeah.
Sports are fun. I love watching them at every level, high school to professional to, international, competition. Don't just focus on the one person because that's just boring.
9315, does MLS stand for Major League Softball?
I mean, depending on who you ask, soccer's pretty soft. So, unless the goalkeepers get hit in the face with a soccer ball, they won't tell you it's soft.
Speaking of softball, we got a big-time game going on right now in Millville, and a live broadcast is taking place.
Is that started already? I thought it was 4:30.
I think
did
it's
it start
starting
4?
now. We'll have to double-check here, but
I'm going to double check.
it's number 1 Ridgeline versus number 2 Desert Hills. This is kind of the timing of a non-region game to be taking place. A little different, but they're winding down the regular season for region play.
A lot of times they end up happening. Like most teams have a non-region game at the end of the year. It's kind of like football where they just all randomly decide to play a couple of non-region games. They do it in volleyball too.
Yeah, for softball and baseball, it makes sense where it's more of a challenge to get those games earlier in the season, so you have to park them on the back end of the season.
Yeah, and sometimes they might just be makeup games, but I don't think this is a makeup game.
No.
But yeah, it is going on right now. They are wearing very similar colored jerseys. This is really annoying to watch. But it's Ridgeline up against Desert Hills, I believe, as you said.
Yeah, number 1 versus number 2.
Yeah, Desert Hills is wearing these dark blue uniforms.
That's weird. That's not in their color scheme at all.
Yeah, it looks like a dark blue. And Ridgeline obviously wears for once, actually a lighter dark blue than their opponents. Usually they have a darker blue if their opponent also has blue in their color scheme. So it's really weird. it took me a second. For a second, I thought they were doing like a warm-up. Ridgeline was doing an inter-squad warm-up game. So I saw a pitch and hit, and I was like, oh, they're just practicing? I was like, no, these are two different teams. But, yeah, right now it's top of the first. It's barely started. There's one out. Or is Ridgeline? No.
Let's check in, see what they say.
Yeah.
You know,
Just
let's get it going.
I want to hear. I want to hear ha. Like that.
Yeah. So everybody knows, but he waits
Yeah,
and then
home team
thinks
finishes
about
out
it.
the
Slow-mo.
inning.
Maybe he's
Here's
thinking
Dave
like,
Simmons.
was it?
It's Dave Simmons and Nick Zollinger on the call right
2-1.
now.
What we got?
To Addie Hansen.
One
West
out.
bringing it, and Addie slaps it to third base, and she's thrown out.
Just a little bit more on that one, a little higher chop. That gets over the head of the third baseman, and that's going to be a base hit for Addie Hansen. But a nice play over there by number 7. That's Heath on third base. H.
So anyway, that's what's going on right now in that broadcast.
And I'm completely flummoxed by these uniforms. I'm still not entirely sure I know who's who.
I know they're both kind of dark colors, so
Yeah, it's like when for a second I thought Ridgeline was the one who's like at bat, but they're supposed to be the ones in the field first because that's how baseball and softball work. In which case, I mean, they just and of course that's the way the scoreboard's set up. So and top of the inning, just ending there is pretty much went 1, 2, 3. I don't know if there was a base hit there. At least when I was paying attention, 3 outs pretty quickly.
yeah. Well, both teams getting out of their sets pretty quick. So now we're going
maybe
into
so they were in the bottom. Of
yeah,
the
they were
first.
already in the
Okay.
bottom of the first, and so
Okay.
both of them go 3 up, 3 down. At least it looked like that. To go, I mean, we're just barely into the game, just a couple minutes, and they're already into the second inning.
So I was just reading the
so-
scoreboard wrong because they had a 0, and I thought they didn't have anything for Ridgeline in the first inning, so I assumed that it was top of the first. And I guess I was wrong in that regard.
But anyway, it's going on. You can watch the video stream on CashValleyDaily.com. Right now, it's also on the radio at 104.5 The Ranch.
Yeah, we've had a lot of really good games. Like I try and plan these out. Like I'm been one generally in charge of the schedule. Although Dave and Nick, they just kind of pick which games they do.
Yes.
Because they just do a lot of Ridgeline stuff, and that's part of why we have a bunch of Ridgeline stuff in our broadcasts is because of availability. But like I'll pick out a lot of the soccer games, lacrosse, and I try and balance, okay, here's the teams that are at the top, but I also want to try and feature every team at some point, along with featuring all the different sports, which that's a lot to put together and figure out. But somehow I've managed to schedule some really good games. Like, there have been a couple of really good soccer games, like overtime or last second, thrilling wins and stuff like that. I think we had a lacrosse game I think we broadcast where it was like really close at the end. So, and of course we get number 1 versus number 2 in the RPI going here. So
Yes. Now, we did have a baseball game on the schedule to be taking place out at Green Canyon, but because of the weather over the last 2 days, their field was not going to be able to handle it. So they postponed their game. I'm not sure of when that game will be made up, but so it says if you go to Cache Valley Daily, we need to change that, but it says there's a Green Canyon versus Skyview baseball game, but that's not going to be taking place. That game has been postponed because of the conditions on the field. But Ridgeline and Desert Hills underway, 0-0 in the top of the. Well, take that back. Look like somebody just hit a home run. She's running the bases for Desert Hills.
yeah, Desert Hills just went up 1-0. Yeah, top of the second.
So pretty exciting game right there to see what takes place in the overall standings as the end of the regular season is quickly approaching. For this.
And this is your playoff prep because you got to be able to play these really good teams and be able to beat them. Regional, that's next week. May 3rd is when softball and baseball regionals will be played on the same days for the most part. These are the kind of teams that you're going to have to beat eventually. Now, if you're a Ridgeline and you're obviously one of the top in the RPI this year, you'll face a couple of teams that are theoretically easier in the opening rounds. But once you get deeper into the playoffs, you got to know how to beat teams like this. Granted, Ridgeline also has Bear River in this region, who's a very tough team. But this is kind of a preview. Okay, this is what it's like when you're facing one of the other top teams in 4A. And even if you end up losing this game, and granted, there's a lot to go, so just the fact that Desert Hills went up 1-0, doesn't mean anything. It's a chance to learn, okay, this is what it's like going up against one of these teams. So you really hope that Ridgeline, one, is able to win this game, but two, is able to obviously learn, cut their teeth against some of the best competition in the state.
Yeah, Ridgeline has shown they can play well against the region, and they're undefeated in region play. They had their first loss, or was it earlier this week, when they lost to Spanish Fork. So how well can they play outside of northern Utah and against other quality competitions? So that's what they're trying to figure out today, taking on Desert Hills. Again, number 1 versus number 2 on 104.5 The Ranch and video streaming on CashValleyDaily.com with Dave Simmons and Nick Zollinger on the call. That game being played in Millville. But lots of different things going on. I mean, you got the NBA playoffs, you got the NHL playoffs, we've got the NFL draft, and the college portals are still open with basketball and football. And some news today regarding the Mountain West with the transfer portal. Lamont Butler from San Diego State going to head to Kentucky, and certainly a player who had some big shots and big defensive moments for his team. Arguably one of the biggest shots in San Diego State history, which helped propel their team to the championship game last year. And a very solid player is taking his talents to Kentucky to be with Coach Mark Pope.
See, and this kind of bothers me a little bit because you talk about legends, and we focus on that here at Utah State. Think, okay, who can potentially be a legend? Lamont Butler is a San Diego State legend, and you kind of outlined some of the reasons he is. I mean, this is a guy who's averaged 7.7 points in a 4-year career, but obviously his impact goes beyond just scoring because he's also a solid passer, and he's obviously a fantastic defender. And as you mentioned, I wouldn't say it's one of the most iconic shots in San Diego State history. It is the shot in San Diego State history.
Yeah.
And he's got one more year of eligibility. He's played 4 years at San Diego State, and he's just going to go play at Kentucky, I guess. Like, he's been on the highest stage, become an Aztec legend. And I don't think this is going to necessarily change that. And I don't think San Diego State fans are going to be, like, torn to shreds over this. But it just adds a weird aftertaste to his career. Kind of like with Karl Malone going to the Lakers. Like, does that change what he was with the Utah Jazz? No, but it just makes you feel weird. And that's how I kind of view this situation. It's like, yeah, it benefits Utah State. Like, you see a talented player leave you one of the rival schools, you're kind of happy to see him go. Say, all right, go play for Kentucky, please. But it bothers me in the sense that, like, this is a San Diego State legend, and he's going to, he had a chance to leave after last year. That his stock was probably even higher at the end of last year after he'd hit that shot.
Yeah.
They'd gone on that run. He could have gone to a Kentucky or whatnot, but he chose to stay. And now he's leaving. I don't know. It just gets to me a little bit.
The Athletic has gone through, and they've ranked like the top 100 players in the portal. And Lamont Butler was like 77th, which was interesting. Max Shulga was way ahead of Lamont Butler in their rankings.
Well, the thing is with Lamont Butler, the thing is he's not like a star player that is going to come in and have that instant impact of like lifting your team or like breaking the ceiling.
Right, he's not going to take you next level.
Yeah. I guess for me, the way I kind of describe him is similar to how you might describe a Rudy Gobert, where he's not like a ceiling breaker player where you raise your potential way up. He's more of a floor raiser in that your team will be better for having Lamont Butler, and noticeably better in ways that are not always easy to put your finger on, mostly for reasons of defense, being that kind of connective tissue player, not so much in stats and in scoring. And that's where, like, your ceiling breakers are, the guys that are averaging, 18, 20 points per game.
Like Caleb Love moving from North Carolina to Arizona.
Yeah, those kind of players, So Lamont Butler isn't that kind of player, and those are the ones that get really highly valued. But every championship team has a Lamont Butler on it.
Yes.
Maybe not necessarily at that specific position, but that kind of player. And that's what makes him valuable. And so obviously he's going to go play at Kentucky. He's very capable of doing that. And best of luck. But, yeah, it's another one of those that kind of just
and Mark
bugs you a little
Pope
bit.
has coached against him a couple of times.
Yeah.
So Mark Pope knows Butler and what he's capable of. And would he be a nice addition for any program? Yeah.
Yeah, every team wants a Lamont Butler. Every single team from top to bottom wants a guy like Lamont Butler. So it makes sense that he'd be able to find a place to go. Granted, he'll probably be a starter for Kentucky. He'll probably average like 6-7 points a game, be their best defender, have a good year, which I guess for him, that's what matters. But again, the long and short of it is that it bugs me that you see a guy create a legacy like that at a place like San Diego State and shun that in favor of chasing the bag.
Right. Yeah. We've had this discussion many times on this show. The opportunity to become a legend is become secondary to the opportunity to go make a quick buck.
Which I guess for him, because often what I have talked about with players, if you don't necessarily have like professional ambitions, then this kind of move may be the best for you. Like Stephen Ashworth, it was in his best interest to make that kind of move. And Lamont Butler's in the same situation, where both of those guys are fringe NBA. They'll get their chance in like an NBA summer league, and maybe they can stick around in the G League, but NBA may not be for them. And there's a bunch, you can go down the list. I keep picking on Stephen Ashworth, and I feel like people might think I don't like him. I don't mean to do that. It's the first example that pops into my head most of the time. But Lamont Butler is honestly just as good of an example. Where if, because we talk about some guys transferring and it hurts their pro stock. These guys aren't hurting their pro stock because it's already probably not high enough to begin with, and there's not a whole lot more they can do to change that. Another year of averaging 8-9 points wasn't going to make Lamont Butler a pro. So maybe you go chase that bag because it might be the last one you're going to get. So in that sense, I get it. But there is the other hand,
right,
where you are a legend. So again, I went to the Utah State Hall of Fame. None of those guys went there like their last year to go play somewhere else. They were Aggies, through and through. That's who they were. And Lamont Butler is an Aztec, through and through. But like,
there's going to be a stain on that now.
You just have to kind of like forget that it happened.
Right. All right, we got to take a timeout here in the Full Court Press. When we come back, let's talk about basketball players in the Mountain West, but let's talk more specifically about Utah State. With the recent addition yesterday on this Aggie squad, are they a little too guard heavy? And just what does the production look like coming out of Utah State coming into this upcoming season for Jared Calhoun and the kind of roster that he's putting together so far? That's next on the Full Court Press.
Devotion to country, service to Utah. Brent Orrin Hatch had a front row seat watching his father serve our state faithfully in the Senate. A constitutional conservative and lifelong Republican, Brent Orrin Hatch is a champion for the rule of law. He's running for Senate to stop this lawless president from destroying our country from within. Hatch will fight to secure the border once and for all and take on Mexican drug cartels to halt the flow of deadly fentanyl. Brent Orrin Hatch knows the national debt is just as big a threat to national security. Hatch won't rest until the budget's balanced and won't cave to the big spenders in both parties. Pro-life, deeply committed to religious liberty, rock-solid Utah conservative. Brent Orrin Hatch for Senate. Paid for by Conservative Outsider PAC, which is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. www.copac.us.
Hi, this is Shawnee Arvey from Cache Valley Bank. I've been with Cache Valley Bank for 26 years and have enjoyed helping my customers reach their financial goals, and I hope to do the same for you. I work with a great team that is dedicated to providing you with the personalized attention you deserve. Stop by our Center Street branch or give me a call and let me show you what opening an account with us can do for you. I look forward to meeting you. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
S.E. Needham Jewelers is where Utah gets engaged. We offer a large selection of personalized service and extraordinary benefits with our integrity price guarantee. At Match Quality, you'll find our prices to be as low or lower than any store in the state. We consistently beat any 50 to 70% off sales, internet pricing, or so-called wholesale deals. In fact, we even price our diamonds at internet pricing, so you'll get S.E. Needham quality at internet prices. Open Monday through Saturday 10 to 7, where Utah gets engaged. S.E. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Do you have a backup generator, or have you explored the options of adding one to your home? Generac backup generators will keep your home or business safe and cool during the summer months if the power goes out. Do you already have a system? Golden Spike Electric can service it for you. If you don't have one, Golden Spike Electric can find the right model for your needs. Find them online at gsegenerators.com or call 435-257-3016. Golden Spike Electric and Generac, power you can count on.
What can a business technology partner do for you? Well, a great one like Les Olson IT will help you become more efficient, more secure, and help you stay on top of your network. Plus, they have all the products and services you need. Computers, servers, business telephones, surveillance cameras, office applications are just the start. Les Olson IT's network cabling team can help you build a network from scratch or improve your existing network. Learn more about your office technology partner at lesolson.com.
Les Olson IT.
The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker. 435-339-0321 if you want to chime in, be part of the show this afternoon. So Utah State added and another player yesterday. Commitment came through while we were on the air. Drake. That's all I can remember.
Drake Allen. Former Westlake High School graduate, Snow College, SUU, and Utah Valley. Man's made a gambit out of the entire state of Utah.
Slowly making his way up the ranks.
As far as I know, he only has 1 year, although I heard somebody say he has 2 years of eligibility left, which be a little weird because his first college year was 2020/2021, which would theoretically give him a COVID year. But this is his 5th year. This next year is going to be his 5th. So I assume that's that. I don't know. I don't know anymore with his eligibility stuff. But this, from what I know, this should be his final season of eligibility, which makes, I think, now 3 one-and-done players that Jared Calhoun's brought in, which is, it's different.
One and done in the sense that they're seniors and they will not have any additional eligibility.
They have no choice but to be a one-and-done.
Right.
Because obviously the Aggies had a few one-and-dones last year, with Great Osprey being one of them, and potentially a few others, Max Egmont Polo and whatnot. You can go down the list. Basically, anybody who's leaving is probably a one-and-done. Actually, the only 2 people who couldn't be one-and-dones are staying. I guess there's Landon Brenchley, too. So.
Yeah, he had to move on.
Yeah. He didn't have to.
Well, he didn't have to. That's true. He's going somewhere else.
Yeah, he's going to go somewhere where he's actually likely going to play. So, it's a lot of experience that Calhoun is bringing in, which is different. I don't have anything particular to say about the fact they're all one-and-dones. It's just different. There's not one way to build a roster. Danny Sprinkle brought in a bunch of guys who are a little bit more development. Obviously, Darius Brown was a veteran guy, and you saw the value of having that veteran guy, but pretty much everyone else had eligibility left. And that worked out fine, but Jared Calhoun kind of did the same thing actually with his last year at Youngstown State. Brought in a lot of guys, most of his roster from Youngstown State, and part of the reason why he hasn't brought anybody over from there is because most of his key guys graduated. So there's not really anybody to bring over. Well, there's one guy he could bring over. It's interesting he hasn't maybe done it yet, especially because it's at a position the Aggies could potentially use.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the Aggies have leaned into experience, and I think it will overall be to their overall benefit. Because the thing is, they have other guys that are young on the roster. Mason Falslev, Isaac Johnson, Carson Templin. So filling the rest of the roster with experience will ultimately, I think, be to those guys' benefit, provided they're able to still get development and playing time. And then they'll be able to take over the rosters they develop into veterans after this year. Because, obviously, since a lot of these incoming guys are one and done, they won't be here next year.
Right. Got to develop that depth.
So, but that's where, a guy like Mason Falslev can, and of course you add Ian Martinez to the list of guys, and Josh Aduje. So it's not just the guys Jared Calhoun is bringing in. There's several guys on the roster who are entering their final year of eligibility as returners. So that kind of makes it even more important for guys like Mason and Isaac to develop, because they're the heirs to the throne come the 2025-26 season. But we don't need to get ahead of ourselves. Let's talk this season.
Yeah, with the transfers coming in, guys saying they're sticking around, it's interesting to take a moment before. I know there's still some time with the transfer portal window being open, but where does the roster look like at this point in time, April 26th, 2024, after all the movement that's taken place? What does the roster look like as of today?
Yeah, so I've got my transfer tracker, which is updated through all the goings-on of yesterday's. There's nothing happens. There's nothing for me to update today. It's good for men's and women's basketball. But this is the roster as it currently sits, best as I can confirm through official sources that guys have left or have come or have committed to staying. Maybe there are guys that have entered the portal that I don't know about yet. That's something we're going to have to figure out. But we've got Dayton Albury, Drake Allen, both of whom are transfers in. Jordan Barnes, there's rumblings that Jordan Barnes may not be on his way to Utah State. So that's one to keep an eye on. And actually, Jackson Grant is another one too. There's been some rumblings online that they're not going to be around next year.
Those are guys who...
Jordan Barnes is an incoming high school recruit out of Olympus.
Right.
Jackson Grant was on the roster last year, played sparingly. He's a center. So you're going to have to keep an eye on those. So you got Mason Falslev, Abin Gadarazzi, Isaac Johnson, Ian Martinez, Jackson Smith, who is a walk-on, and their status can always be funny because walk-ons will sometimes just spend a year and then they leave. It's actually fairly rare to have a walk-on for like 4 or 5 years. Carson Templin and Josh Aduje. So that's 11 with like question marks on 3 people as to whether or not they're going to stick around. One of those being a walk-on. So you got 8 guys that I can confirm are going to be on the roster for this next season. 2 guys who might be. And I'm going to figure that out. So looking at the roster, and the question that you went the break teasing, is this team a little guard heavy? The answer is right now, yes. I don't know if it's a bad thing, but they are fairly guard heavy. And you're going to see a lot of guard heavy lineups, fairly similar to last season. Like their starting lineup had 3 guys that are 6'3" and under, which is fairly typical of college teams to have 3 guard lineups. The small forward position isn't really a thing in college basketball unless you're one of the few teams that's blessed to have a guy who's 6'7", 6'8", and can play like a guard. Those guys are fairly rare in the college ranks. Like the Aggies have had players like that. Jalen Moore, Sean Bairstow, you can probably think of a few more, but there aren't too many guys who can play that position. So if you have a Josh Aduje, Ian Martinez, that's generally who your small forward is going to be, even if they're technically a guard.
Right. Yeah, so still a few roster spots available.
Yeah.
So Coach Calhoun is not done filling out his roster.
Yeah, and the Aggies are not going after more guards. They have their guards. They're pretty much set there. I mean, maybe there'll be another guard, because sometimes you'll have 6 or 7 guards on your roster.
But any additional guards they get will likely be development.
Yeah, development guys, walk-ons, potentially. You're not likely to see another addition of a guy that you would expect to play. Because last year the Aggies basically ran a 4-guard rotation, sometimes 5 with Javon Jackson coming in. So like 4.5 guards. The Aggies will run 5 guards regularly with Albury, Allen, Falslev, Martinez, and Uduje. And that's going to be a fantastic rotation. Like, I don't know if it quite has the top-end talent of someone like Darius Brown, but Ian Martinez could end up stepping into the role of team's leading scorer and average something like 17, 18 points a game. Mason could see a jump in scoring. Albury is probably going to see a dip in his scoring numbers where he averaged 17 at Queens. He'll probably jump down closer to 11 or 12. Like, you could be seeing 3 guys averaging double digits out of, probably Albury, Mason, and Martinez, all averaging double digits. And Allen Uduje averaging somewhere around 8 or 9 points. And that's before you get to whatever you're going to have out of your centers.
Right, true.
So, having this guard-heavy lineup, there are some worries that you could end up having. For instance, last year the Aggies struggled to guard some bigger forwards. They struggled to rebound and be physical at times. That's kind of the downside. But they are going to be incredibly hard to stop when they are on offense, provided they have three-point shooting.
Right. The real critical aspect of that is how well can they shoot from 3? How well can they really space the floor?
Yeah, and that's going to be the golden question, and it's one that I can't really answer because it can be pretty hard. Everyone wants to try and predict someone's three-point shooting. It's why there's also people look to free throw percentage to guess people's three-point shooting because there is some correlation there. Everyone wants to try and figure out how good of a three-point shooter can these guys be. And I've talked over and over again how I'm not really worried about Mason Falslev because I think he'll improve. But what if he doesn't improve? That hurt the Aggies because him not being able to shoot the 3 did hurt the Aggies last. It wasn't a backbreaker, but it hurt them a little bit.
Right, defensively, then teams can just front him. They don't need to worry about closing out on him.
Yeah, if you don't have to worry about closing out on him, and then that hurts Mason's ability to drive to the rim because that's where his strength is.
Yeah.
So he needs to be able to hit that three-point shot. Now, you look at a guy like Dayton Albury, he has enough of a three-point shot. Ian Martinez, he's fine, 38%, whatnot. Drake Allen, he's kind of a weird case, and I was looking into it earlier today. Because I'm working on my breakdown of him, trying to figure out more about him, get it in written form. So it'll probably come out early next week. Because I'm gonna be pretty busy this weekend. But the weird thing about Drake Allen is he has one season where he shot really well from 3, and it was I'm not gonna get into too much, but it was weirdly he had this one area of 3-point shooting where he was really good, just randomly. And then he fell off a cliff last year. And so I don't know what to make of Drake Allen. Because part of me thinks, okay, did he discover something last year where he shot 35.5% from 3, which is a perfectly fine 3-point percentage, and you'd take that 100% if you were an Aggie? Or is the rest of his career what he really is? Because he shot 29% in 2 years at Snow College, and he shot 23% last year. So you add all that together, he was, those other 3 years, he's somewhere in the 26, 27%. But 1 year he shot 35, 36%. So what is he?
Right. Well, and sometimes it can vary how a coach and his system wants to use a player in a system. If you've got a great shooter, you don't need to be the great shooter. You need to be the distributor. But there are times where you still need to be able to hit a shot.
Yeah, and Allen needs to be able to hit that shot because the thing is, his role is going to be, I think, best where he's running pick and rolls and pick and pops with Abin Gadaratzi. The thing that actually has me the most excited is when you look at Drake Allen, he did a lot of great work at SUU with Jason Spurgeon, who was their 7-footer at SUU a couple years back. He actually ended up going to Bowling Green this last year, and did a lot of great work with him at SUU as a pick and roll duo. Then last year, Allen was working with Trevin Dorius, a name Aggie fans will obviously remember, as a pick and roll partner. And and now you come to Utah State, and Abin Gadaratzi is a fantastic target for the pick and roll. We've talked at length about his shooting percentages, and Drake Allen is going to be the point guard that can help set Abin Gadaratzi up for a lot of that through pick and roll. But part of that ball screen and pick and roll action is the ball handler needs to be a threat to score. And that's where Drake Allen needs to make sure he's able to take advantage of things. Either that, part of that is going to be driving to the rim. Some of that, though, is shooting 3-pointers in those actions. So it's something to keep an eye on. 3-point shooting is going to be a question mark. And again, it's not one thing that I can answer. I can try and give optimistic takes about it. There's hope pointing in the direction of the Aggie guards being able to be decent from 3. But there are a lot of question marks and a lot of worries to where they could end up being a lot more like last year, where they really struggled in a lot of ways outside of the times Ian Martinez was able to hit threes and whenever Darius Brown touched the ball.
We need to take a timeout here in the Full Court Press. Before we do that, quick update on what's going on with Ridgeline and Desert Hills. Number 1 versus number 2. Ridgeline taking control in the bottom of the third. Had bases loaded. Base hit, was able to drive in a few more runs. They got multiple players still on base. Again, no outs. So Ridgeline taking control of this game early in the third inning, leading 3-0. Again, video streaming on CashValleyDaily.com, on the radio on 104.5 The Ranch. Quick timeout. So we'll continue talking about Utah State basketball and latest in the transfer portal, because there's more transfer updates for football as well. We'll give you an update on where one player is headed after he put his name in the portal earlier this week. That's next on the Full Court Press.
Bright green cars, that's the only thing you need to remember as you're driving down Main Street in Logan looking for Jarek's Fine Jewelry. Hi, this is Jarek. We have a lot of people comment on the bright green cars outside, and some even talk about the building, but the overwhelming responses come when they step inside. Jarek's showroom was created to offer an intimate, romantic setting for couples to enjoy their ring buying experience. Everyone is treated like a friend with no price negotiation needed. Make your engagement special. Make it Jarek's. Come see us at 930 North Main in Logan. Just look for the bright green cars.
According to Malcolm Gladwell, it takes over 10,000 hours to become an expert at anything. This is Jay with Daryl's Appliance. You don't need to spend any of your valuable time figuring out appliances when you partner with us. We are Cache Valley's local appliance experts. Daryl, my dad, started this business in 1970. Founded with his passion of connecting with people, we train our amazing team to carry on his passion for people and appliances. It's part of the Daryl's difference. Call for your appliance repair today. Daryl's Appliance, west on Airport Road.
Summer in Cache Valley is beautiful, and the Sportsman on Main Street has all your bike needs covered. Get your bike in now for service or a tune-up. We can usually get your service done in about 2 days. Be ready for the beautiful riding days ahead. If you need a new bike, we have kids to adult full suspension mountain bikes and e-bikes for around town or the mountains. From bikes to helmets to locks and clothing, come and see us at the Sportsman on Main Street in downtown Logan for all your biking needs.
She was there for you on your first day of school, and all those special moments since. Now, Mom needs you. When Mom or someone you love needs home health or hospice, give them the care they deserve. With core values of character, experience, and trust, see why we have been voted Best of Northern Utah. Contact Aegis today, 435-723-9000, or find us on the web at myaegis.com.
Here's Chad Norton, the lawn doctor, with another tip for your lawn.
It's been a wet, cool, crazy year for your lawn. Soil temperatures have been slow to warm up. Over the next few weeks, you'll see weeds fight for space and try to take over your lawn. Dandelions pack about 200 seeds on each flower. Those seeds can blow up to 5 miles and live up to 7 years. We can help you win the weed battle. Call the Lawn Doctor at 753-LAWN or go to lawndoctor.com.
The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools, the Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker. By the way, Ridgeline has added another run on the board. Served me 2 more runs on the board. They're having themselves a party.
Yeah, this is one of those innings that just changes a game. Because, you give up the 1 run in the top of the second inning, it's like, okay, that's not obviously not a huge deal. 1 run isn't anything. But having this inning where, they're 5 runs in, and they still have 0
outs. It's an avalanche of scoring
It's
here.
one of those where you go through your entire lineup and you have batters batting for a second time in an inning. That's when you know you're having a fantastic inning.
Yeah,
is when some of these batters are having a second, and oftentimes it'll result in a pitching change. You have to force a pitcher out because they just kind of lost, and you end up forcing a team to go into their bullpen maybe an inning or 2 earlier than they were expecting. So,
number 1 versus number 2 here in the RPI standings in 4A softball.
Which one was which? Was it Desert Hills at 1 or Ridgeline?
I think Ridgeline was number 1.
That's what I was thinking, but I wasn't 100% sure.
So we were talking about transfers, Utah State basketball, and its roster, filling out the roster. Still a few open spots available, and we'll get to that in just a second, but there are a few texts that have come in. We want to make sure we hit those as well. 435-339-0321 if you want to chime in. 8968, Aggies may as well get one-and-done players. That's about as long as they stay around anyway.
Yeah, I feel like there's some coaches that are going to, Jared Calhoun's kind of made a living with this because I think his last 2 years at Youngstown State, he worked a lot of one-and-done guys with, one-and-done as in one and into graduation type of one-and-dones. And he did that a couple years in a row, and so maybe that's what his style is going to be. The benefit of that is you're going to get veteran players who are proven, who are good, you know who they are. Obviously, the downside is they're gone, but 8968 pointing out a lot of players do that anyway.
Right. So if you're going to have one, rent a player for a year, might as well get one who's a little more experienced. 8908, and mature, by the way. 8908 texting in, what do you think we'll see from Garrison Phelps this year, if anything?
So from what I've been able to gather, Garrison Phelps is in the transfer portal. He's not said anything publicly, but he's also not really on social media. So yeah, he's in the portal from what I can tell. A couple of different sources that list transfer portals, at least 2 different places that have transfer portal listings have him in there. I've not officially confirmed it, but again, from what I can tell, he's in the portal, which is a shame because I really like Garrison Phelps. And coming off a redshirt season, he's that kind of athletic wing, has some shooting potential, 3-level scoring potential. He's similar to Mason Falsa, but 3 inches taller. But unfortunately, it seems he's looking for options elsewhere.
So a few open roster spots, maybe even more. But who are you hearing that Utah State is targeting?
So a couple guys. Well, one guy who's taken a visit to Utah State is a guy named Tucker Anderson, Central Arkansas. He's freshman of the year. Out of the A-Sun, because of course it's the A-Sun. That's where they're getting pretty much everybody else.
Dripping, yeah.
That's where both Gadarazzi and Albury came from. But Anderson, 6'9" forward, average, I think it was 14 points per game. I got to change this. I was looking at Roddy Anderson. It was 14 points. He's a shooter. That's one big thing that really stands out to you. The size, he's only about 190 pounds, but again, 6'9". Freshman of the year from the A-Sun, 14.5 points, 38% from 3. So a lot of the kind of player that you maybe want the Aggies to pick up. One, very talented. I'm not going to point out the fact that he's young because that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to stick around every year at Utah State, but he's a guy that can come in and provide more of what the Aggies don't have. You look at some of the additions the Aggies have made, they keep adding something they don't have. When they added Dayton Albury, well, they didn't have a point guard. They added a point guard. They added Abin Gadarazzi. They didn't have a ton in the way of rebounding or inside rim protection or whatnot, because Isaac Johnson is kind of just a different archetype as a center. So Gadarazzi added things that the Aggies didn't have from their current roster. Drake Allen, he adds a little bit more passing. I know Dayton Albury plays point guard, but Allen is a better passer and a better pick-and-roll distributor. That was something, especially when you have guys like Isaac Johnson and Abin Gadarazzi. You need a guy who can pass out of the pick and roll. Now you need a long shooter. You need shooting and you need longer players. Get them all in one. That's obviously what you want. Tucker Anderson brings that. So it's another guy who brings in something that the Aggies really need at a position in which they could certainly use it. The only negative is Anderson is getting a lot of interest from a lot of very good schools. So the odds of the Aggies landing him aren't superb, but from what I understand, he either has or will take a visit to Utah State.
Aggies are in the hunt. And that's good. And then another player that Utah State has seen before.
I'm going to make you say his name.
Now, is this the kid he's from Mongolia?
Yeah, he's from Mongolia. Mongolian Mike. But Eric, please say his last name for me.
If I could only remember how we heard it pronounced during the game last year. Mike Sharavyamps?
All right, we'll go with that.
I don't know.
Forward for San Francisco, and yeah, the Aggies saw him. He started all 34 games for San Francisco last year as a sophomore. He's a guy not quite as good a shooter as Anderson, 36% though, and I think similar volume. He is a more versatile forward than I think Anderson is. He's a guy who averaged nearly 3 assists per game. So very intriguing player for his height, where he's 6'8", but plays almost like a guard, which is just very intriguing to see at a position like that.
Yeah. I remember watching him and liking it just as he was young, but he showed some potential. And when I heard he was in the portal, instantly thought that, oh man, he'd make a great addition to the Utah State roster as a wing player with some size that could do a couple different things for you.
Yep.
Doesn't need to be the centerpiece, but he is a great complement to other pieces you already have.
Yeah, he'd just be a fantastic complement to everything the Aggies have. Their bigs, their guards, add a little bit more shooting. He's a gradually improving shooter. And he made a big jump from his freshman year to his sophomore year in that department. Could make another big jump.
All right, got to take another time out. Speaking of portals, portal transfers, a former Aggie who put his name in just recently has a new home. We'll tell you where he's headed next on the Full Court Press.
When it comes to home care, it's important to know you have a choice. If you or a loved one is in need of hospice or home health services, remember that Primrose Home Care and Hospice believes in treating the patient as well as the problem. We work directly with you and your doctor to create a health plan that's catered to your needs. Our team is devoted to providing options in the freedom and safety of your own home. Visit us at primrosecare.com or call to schedule a free consultation. Primrose Home Care and Hospice, your local hospice and home health provider since 2006.
Hey drivers, let's face it, driving can be challenging. From heavy traffic to bad weather, there's always something that keeps us on our toes. Driving is challenging, but car insurance doesn't have to be. This is Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance, an Alera Group company. As an independent auto owners insurance agency, we work with top-notch carriers to find the best coverage and the best price. Whether you're a seasoned driver or just starting out, Quality First has your back. 435-752-0101.
This is Nate Lamson with Valley Office Systems, your home team when local matters. Valley Office Systems is your local provider for all things office, copiers, printers, furniture, and document management. Proudly serving Cache Valley since 2007. Visit valleyofficesystems.com.
It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
See your locally owned Napa Auto Parts for spark plugs, air filters, oil, batteries, car wash supplies, a whole lot more than that. There's 5 different locations to choose from. Napa Auto Parts from Preston to Providence. So earlier this week, Aggie fans were hit with a bit of a blow, a gut punch. One of the players who took to social media in December to say, hey, we're going to run it back. Stick around, stick with us, because we're sticking with you. Then he did a 180 and put his name in the portal this last week, and that's Anthony Switzer. And it did not take him long at all to find a new home, which we love to see these types of stories where a player puts his name in the portal and then like that is at the destination signing the paperwork. So amazing how quickly he was found in the portal and connected and recruited to his new destination. But he's headed closer to home. Anthony Switzer is going to Arkansas.
Yeah, and I think that's where this is something, that kind of material change in circumstances where maybe you feel like Anthony Switzer was fairly all in, and then he got handed a deal that he probably just couldn't refuse, where Arkansas would have come to him and said, kind of with Paul Fitzgerald, where Paul Fitzgerald's from Idaho, but obviously one of the local teams he would have known about, University of Utah, go to a bigger school, still relatively close to family. That's something that Paul Fitzgerald wasn't going to turn down when they come up to him and offer him that. Good old tampering.
Right.
And for Switzer, probably had a very similar situation happen to him, except obviously it feels further away for us, but obviously for him, he's from Arkansas, went to Arkansas State out of college, or out of high school, So he was wanting to stick around, but then he got an option to go play at Utah State, decided to do that. But now Arkansas, obviously the team he probably grew up rooting for. And to be likely getting a upgrade in NIL, play closer to home, friends and family, and a team that he very likely grew up rooting for, you can't really blame him. Despite the fact that you feel like you might want to blame him for saying, I'm staying, and then changing his mind. But it seems like it was one of those offers that he couldn't refuse, and I don't blame him one bit for it.
Yeah. And this really speaks to what Nick Saban admitted to last night about trying to recruit players who have not put their names in the portal, trying to get them into the portal. He talked about that with the player out of Toledo. And we're seeing this happen, and it's not right. Something's got to change. More on that, the NBA playoffs, and a whole lot more next hour here on the Full Court Press. Stick around. 106.9 FM, The Fan.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. Last night's NFL draft was filled with surprises, but nothing could top what the Falcons did. A little over a month ago, Atlanta finally found their answer at QB after signing four-time Pro Bowler Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal worth just over $100 million in guarantees. The commitment to the 35-year-old veteran seemed to be the final swing at the team's attempt to compete. Atlanta's loaded with offensive skill position talent. The defense flashed a fair amount of potential last season, and the team came into the offseason armed with the number 8 pick overall. But instead of building a contender, the Falcons looked towards the future. They shocked everybody by taking Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr. After the success we saw from Jordan Love in Green Bay, it's hard to knock the Falcons for selecting what they believe will be their future franchise quarterback. But with Cousins due $180 million over the next 4 seasons, maybe close to a half a decade until we truly know what Atlanta has in the former Heisman hopeful. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.